Well, everybody likes to talk about how Route 66 was removed from the maps, how it was decommissioned and mostly forgotten. What a lot of people don't tell you is how hard a small group of people in Arizona fought to get it back. In 1985, Route 66 was officially decommissioned. Just like that, the most famous highway in America vanished from the U.S. map. A National Park Service study later confirmed the fallout. More than 2,400 businesses closed. Nearly half of all traveler-based businesses on the route were gone within a few years. But the road didn't stay quiet for long. And what happened next didn't come from Washington or any top-down revival plan. It came from a barber in a bypassed Arizona town, a group of locals in a Route 66 diner, and a growing wave of people who refused to let the mother road disappear. This is the story of the rebirth of Route 66, and it's one of my favorite ones to tell as we go beyond the exit. Angel Delgadillo had been cutting hair in Seligman, Arizona since the 1950s. His shop doubled as a pool hall, and after work, he'd usually head down the street to help his brother Juan run the snow-capped drive-in. He knew Route 66 firsthand because he lived it. Families, truckers, tourists, they all came through. But in 1978, I-40 opened up, and just like that, like a faucet turning off, all that traffic was gone. Seligman wasn't a stop anymore, it was just a place people skipped. Inevitably, businesses closed. Things got really quiet, and they stayed that way for nearly 10 years. For Angel, though, it felt like the government had erased them on purpose. On February 18, 1987, he had had enough. In his little town of Seligman, he reached out to his fellow businessmen and leaders and called a meeting at the Copper Cart Diner, which was just down the street from his shop. 15 people showed up. It may have been just a few, but it was enough. That night, they formed the historic Route 66 Association of Arizona. It was the first one in the country, and Angel took the lead. And they had a plan of action. They opened a gift shop just a few weeks later to help the movement and attract travelers. They launched a statewide letter and phone campaign targeting the Arizona DOT and Tourism Office. They showed up in person at chamber meetings and state tourism hearings, pressing for official recognition of Route 66. They also organized the very first Route 66 Fun Run, a rolling car show all the way from Seligman to the California border that brought crowds, cameras, and headlines. It wasn't easy, and a lot of officials really didn't see the point. In their minds, the road was dead. Why would you worry about bringing it back? Well, it wasn't just as simple as Arizona coming in and saying, yes, you guys can have historic status. The road had degraded greatly in the last decade. In order for them to grant them historic status, the road had to be brought back up to state standard. Now, the state was going to put up their half of the money, but the counties it ran through had to agree to put up their half also, up to $10,000 per mile. But Angel and his neighbors kept pushing. On November 22, 1987, they got their answer. Arizona officially designated 159 miles of the old road, from Ash Fork, Arizona, all the way to Topak at the California border, as historic Route 66. And they were the first state to do it. It wasn't about nostalgia, it was about proving the road still had value, and that Seligman still mattered. And it started with one barber who got tired of being forgotten and decided to fight back. Angel's battle and victory didn't go unnoticed. Word had got out, first to other towns in Arizona, then across the state line. What he and that small group pulled off in 1987 showed people that there was hope that they could do it too. They didn't need permission from Washington. They just had to believe the road was worth saving. So Missouri kicked it off first in 1989. They formed their own Route 66 Association, and by early 1990, they'd secured a state historic designation in Springfield, Missouri, where the road had originally been named back in 1926. Illinois followed after that. A group met in Pontiac in March of '89 and started cataloging the old road. By 1995, signs were up along the full route. In Auburn, they preserved a brick stretch of Route 66 from 1931. And it's still drivable today. In New Mexico, they went another route. In '94, they earned scenic byway status and focused on preserving neon landmarks, especially in Albuquerque. There, they even added Route 66 signage to city buses. And another thing happened. People were starting to notice this thing was gaining momentum. In Oklahoma, they had over 400 miles of Route 66, and the towns began to show their pride once again. People began restoring some of the older places along the route, like the volunteers who rebuilt the Round Barn in Arcadia. And over in Stroud, Don Welsh bought the old Rock Cafe and brought it back to life. Museums followed in Clinton and Elk City, putting the road's story on display. Kansas, even though it just had 13 miles of the road, wasn't going to be left behind either. Their association was formed in 1990 and poured their energy into Galena. Volunteers restored an old Canotech station there, patched up the Brush Creek Bridge, and lined the route with good old Burma shave signs. California joined in by the end of 1990. Victorville opened its Route 66 Museum in 1995, and cities like Barstow and San Bernardino brought back vintage motels, murals, and signage. Finally, Texas came on board. They had the second shortest stretch of Route 66. In 91, they formed their association and helped restore places like the U-Drop Inn in Shamrock and promoted the Midpoint Cafe in Adrian, exactly 1,139 miles from both ends of the road. By the mid-90s, every Route 66 state had joined in this revival. Places were being restored, but more importantly, some pretty important people were starting to take notice. While local groups were bringing the road back mile by mile, something else happened, something that reached people far beyond Route 66. In 1990, a journalist named Michael Wallace published Route 66, The Mother Road. It wasn't just a history book, it was a storybook for grown-ups. It was a road trip in print. He wrote about diners and motels, mechanics and families who gave the road its soul. For a lot of readers, it was the first time they realized the road wasn't gone. It had just been forgotten. The book hit the bestsellers list, and it kicked off a wave of renewed interest. Suddenly, new documentaries, travel shows, even coffee table books were coming out about the route. In 1997, National Geographic ran a full-length feature that put Route 66 right back into the national conversation. By the early 2000s, it wasn't just Americans paying attention either. Route 66 started showing up in overseas travel guides. But the biggest boost? Well, that came in 2006, when Disney Pixar released the movie Cars. Now, there's a lot of people that may not know that director John Lasseter had taken a break after a string of some stellar hits, but definitely some endless hours working. He decided to spend the summer traveling with his family. Most of their road trip was directly on old Route 66. Well, that trip stuck with him. Quiet towns, old signs, stories that felt half-finished. When they started developing Cars, Lasseter brought the Pixar crew on a research trip, and they hired none other than Michael Wallace to guide them.
It's not the destination, it's the journey. It's all right to get lost, it's all right to spend time, it's all right to stop.
He didn't just show them landmarks, he introduced them to the people still fighting to keep the road alive. In Seligman, they met Angel Delgadillo. He told them what it was like the day the interstate opened.
When we were bypassed at about this time of the day, 1:30, 2 o'clock, the world stopped. The world just forgot about us. But it didn't come back to normal for 10 long years.
And that story helped shape the heart of the film. And for those who have listened very closely, you may know that the voice of the sheriff in the movie is Mr. Mike Wallace himself. And when Cars hit theaters, it definitely struck a nerve. After the success of the movie, towns along Route 66 started seeing younger travelers and more international ones. The people weren't just passing through anymore. They were stopping. They were asking questions. And thankfully, they were spending money. The once forgotten highway had re-entered pop culture full tilt. For nearly a decade, the revival of Route 66 was driven by locals, people like Angel, and dozens of small-town groups that picked up where he had left off. But eventually, even Washington would take notice. In 1999, Congress passed the Route 66 Corridor Preservation Act. Now, it didn't go as far as to declare the road a monument or a park, It wasn't about control, but it was about support. The law created a matching grant program under the National Park Service. If a business or nonprofit wanted to restore a Route 66 landmark, the government would match their effort, dollar for dollar. And this program that launched in 2001 ran over the next 2 decades, definitely helped funding more than 170 projects. And they weren't just small roadside repairs. The grants went toward neon restorations, bridge reinforcements, roof replacements, foundation stabilization, and full-scale restorations of motels, cafes, and historic buildings tied to the old alignment. In total, the program issued $2.02 million in federal grants, which unlocked another $3.4 million in private matching funds. Then, in 2012, Rutgers University conducted a major impact study. Route 66 travelers were spending over $130 million annually, just across 6 of the 8 states. The money supported more than 2,000 full-time jobs, more of them in small towns. According to the study, 30 to 50% of the visitors were international. 83% of the business owners said Route 66 traffic was the reason they were still open. Today, you can still see the result. For once, the government didn't pave over the past. It helped keep it standing. By the time the Corridor Preservation Program wrapped up in 2019, Route 66 had already become something bigger than anyone imagined. It wasn't just a nostalgic trip anymore. It was a full-blown economic engine, especially for small towns that had once been left behind. In Seligman, where the revival began, businesses that once stood empty now see thousands of visitors every year. Travelers come from all over the world, whether it's Europe, Japan, Australia, just to meet the man who saved Route 66. My wife Kim and I had the chance to do that very thing in 2023. And to be honest, we were a little nervous and starstruck, almost too scared to go up and talk to him. After we said our hellos and took a picture or two, then we asked him about his story. You could tell it was one he'd told a lot of times. And if you've seen any of his interviews, he starts it off this way. It wasn't necessarily about him. It was what they were able to accomplish. He said, "We the people did it." Nearly 40 years after it was removed from the U.S. highway system, Route 66 is back on the map. Not because anyone gave it permission, but because they fought for that right. Now the road is heading into its next chapter. In 2026, Route 66 turns 100. And there's a growing push to give it a permanent protection. In 2018, Congress introduced multiple bills to designate Route 66 a National Historic Trail. It would put it in the same category as something like the Lewis and Clark Trail, preserved in law, recognized across the country. And while the bills have gained bipartisan support, they still haven't passed yet. Still, a movement behind it is growing. And even where the U.S. government doesn't pick up, state governments have begun to help. But the most exciting part is that the next generation, younger generations, are starting to keep it going. Cars was 19 years ago, and the younger generation that saw it as children have grown up and have kids of their own. And they're going back out to visit their own Radiator Springs. They're not driving it to relive the past because they weren't there. They're driving it to experience what the past left them. Route 66 may not be on most maps anymore. In fact, you'll have a hard time finding it on a GPS either. But it's still out there, and it's waiting for you. And in 2026, I'd say that it's going to be an exciting time to go out and get your kicks on Route 66. You know, Route 66 was a dead highway that was brought back, not because of some legend that it had, although that didn't hurt, but because of a bunch of people that refused to let it die. If you've enjoyed our Route 66 story arc, and there's several videos on it, be sure and look on our channel. You'll be able to find them under playlist, The Life and Times of Route 66. And if you enjoy what we're doing, why don't you come along with us? Subscribe and go ahead and like this video. We've got lots more content coming, not just about Route 66, but about a lot of other highways. And we'd love to hear from you on it. We answer each and every comment personally. As always, I really appreciate you coming along with us. Thank you again for watching, and God bless.